in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
What is up, everybody? This is Hater Radio. My name is Chris McLean. I'm here with my co-host, Ian Gibson. How are you, Ian?
Doing very good. Ready for football to finally get started this weekend.
Yeah, it's been 7 months since we've had action, so it's finally here. We have week 0. Just a very small amount of games, so this show is going to be really quick. So with that in mind, let's do the socials, and then we'll get into it. So you can find us at haterradio.com for all of our articles, especially UCLA, USC, USF, and Florida, the teams that we cover. I have a preview for UCLA coming out today at some point soon. So look for that, UCLA fans. Ian is getting an article to me in the next couple of days. We'll have that for the USF fans. Next week, we'll have the USC and Florida ones. I'll have something about the playoff because I'm loving the fact that we have a 12-team playoff, with especially my biggest thing that I have been a proponent of for years, which is home playoff games in college stadiums, which will probably change how we view this sport because of the fact that we've never seen a home playoff game in major college football, and it's going to be mind-bending how amazing those games are going to be. I really do. I really am excited for the environment and all that. But those articles, then I'll probably have something on Billy Napier. We'll have articles throughout the year during big games and whatnot of going on between those 4 teams, and random stuff as well. You can reach us at hater_radio for both X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. For Facebook, it is Hater Radio CFB. For YouTube, which we just officially reached 200 subscribers last night, which is a great milestone. There we go. That is just at Hater Radio. It's the most simplistic one we got. I don't know how we were able to get it, but we got that one. So look for us all for there. Ian, what are your socials? I forgot to do that last week.
Yeah, my socials, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter are at G_Gator_G.
There you go. So follow us there, like, subscribe, comment, everything. You know, all of it goes into the algorithm and gets us further and further up in the ranks in the Google search. So it helps us out tremendously. You know, it doesn't cost you anything to do, but the benefit to us is tremendous, considering we put so much effort into this research for these games. And, you know, we just would appreciate some reciprocation there. It's not that much of an effort. Just all you have to do is hit one button, boom, and then it helps us out tremendously. Okay, so with that being said, let's talk about these week 0 games. I'll talk about the one that we want to talk about the most last. Let's talk about some of the other ones first. I know last year, and we didn't talk about this in the pre-prep, Ian, but Florida A&M was a really good offense last year, and we saw that in the USF game.
Mm-hmm.
They're going up against Norfolk State, so I don't know much about Norfolk State. I know more about A&M just because of their offense last year and how good they were. But is that A&M team still as high-powered this year as they were last year? Do you have any intel on them?
So with Florida A&M, obviously they were one of the dominant powers of the D2 rank or FCS. Yeah, FC. I still call them D2. It shows you how old I am. A lot of team with them, the process, a lot of players, have moved on, higher rankings and all that. I know they just announced Daniel Richardson, mobile quarterback, as their QB1 for the opening game. So I think with Florida A&M, it's the system they have. It's more they're very high scoring. But with the transfers they got in, I think they're going to maintain the same level of efficiency. Like I said, they have a system in place, very motion heavy with everything. Norfolk State, I actually know a couple of people who did go to Norfolk State. Norfolk State very much last year struggled. I think they won like 3 games, and obviously A&M, won the whole freaking thing.
Yeah.
So I think Florida A&M keeps up the efficiency against Norfolk State. And especially with how the season goes on. I know they play Miami at Miami, but I know the big games for them are usually obviously the end of year Bethune-Cookman rivalry. But the other big ones are South Carolina State, which is after this, and then Jackson State in the middle of the year.
Yeah. They still have that same coach, right? The same guy that was there last couple of years.
I'm pretty sure. I haven't heard, him moving on. At least I didn't hear anything from that.
Yeah, it looks like a James Colsey. I think that's his name, because he's done a really tremendous job there, and FAM, it's in Tallahassee, and I had friends that went there when I was when I went to Florida State. Yes, surprise, folks. I went to Florida State. Yes, I know I talk so much crap about them, but I did go there for a year. But no, yeah. So FAM, it's with a lot of these HBCUs, it's tough because they don't get the funding, obviously, that a lot of these other ones do, because these major college programs have a ton of money, but they still are, they do have guys that are talented. Like I said last year, that USF FAM game was closer than I think a lot of USF fans would have liked, but that FAMU team was probably one of the better teams that USF played last year. It's not even a lie. That's just reality. No, they won the SWAC championship. And it says Black College National Champion too. So they had a really good year last year. I don't know if Cozy is going to leave. But having a 12-1 year last year. Oh no, it's not Cozy. Oh no. Okay. So I think I was wrong. It was Willie Simmons last year, and I think he did leave. Where's he at now? Yeah, that's right. He left and became running backs coach at Duke. I knew there was something up. I remember I was like, that guy's really good. He should be coaching somewhere big somewhere. So it might be the right move for him, because it's like you go on to somewhere like Duke as running backs coach, then because obviously his offense is good. He, becomes offensive coordinator somewhere at a decent program. And it sucks because it's like those HBCUs, like they lose talented coaches because it's just like the smaller level G5 schools. You just can't keep them. The money is not there. They can't recruit on the level that those other schools can. It does suck for him, for FAM, but hopefully this Cozy guy is this good enough. I'm actually going to look this up real quick.
I think he was with he's a part of Bobby Bowden's coaching tree.
Who, Cozy was?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds right, because it's like Tallahassee, they probably just brought someone in that's familiar with the area. Let me see. 24 head coach. Sorry for this, folks, but this is just what happens. Let me see. Real quick information. For FAM. He's been all over like smaller programs. Florida State. 2-sport athlete at Florida State. Baseball, and was part of the 93 championship team. Yeah, he was head coach in Canada for like 6 or 7 years. And he's been like the assistant coach for FAM the last couple of years. Yeah, I mean, who knows? This is obviously not the biggest of deal, because like we don't cover FAM that often, but I was just curious. So, FAM, we'll see what happens in that game. Hopefully they can continue the success they had. He's a defensive coach, so maybe their offense struggles. I don't know. I don't know what happened, like offensive coordinator wise. I mean, I have to do a deep dive into that, but I may not, just because we don't cover them that much because they don't play that many big time games. So, regardless, let's move on. The other game, there's two other games that I really wanted to talk about because the rest of them are kind of small. One of them is another one outside the two, but Delaware State at Hawaii. I'm not going to really talk about because Hawaii doesn't really they haven't been that much of a player on the big stage for a long time. So I'm not going to really talk about Hawaii, but SMU at Nevada. So SMU jumps into the ACC this year. I know, surprise everyone. No one would have even imagined that, but here we are, a Texas school in the ACC.
Not as weird as Cal and Stanford in the ACC.
Oh yeah, I know now that too as well. Both of them are wild, or all three are wild. But I think SMU is more of a surprise just because SMU was non-Power 5. At least like Cal and Stanford have been Power 5 for a very long time, so that made more sense. But SMU was kind of like, I don't know. They also took a really high leveraged, not leveraged, the deal they made favors the ACC in a lot of ways because SMU defers making money, and they're like, I think they're even paying to be in the league. They won't make money for like a long time. I think it's like 11 or 12 years until they actually get broadcasting money from whatever deal they make with a TV contract. So so SMU is really trying to get out of the AAC, which they did, and they were successful. So more power to them. We'll see what happens to the ACC eventually. But okay, so let's talk about the game. The head coach for SMU is Lashley, right? That's his name. The guy that was the offensive coordinator for Miami and I think Wisconsin.
Yeah, Rhett Lashley.
Yeah, I forgot his first name. Yeah, Lashley. So he took over, I believe, last year. Yeah, Rhett Lashley. I believe he took over last year, and they were competitive in the AAC. Definitely the offense, and that's been the thing for the SMU for the last several years, has been the offense has been their strong suit. I think, coming into the ACC, they could be a surprise against all these other teams because the ACC is weak. I feel like, with a schedule like SMU has, where, they're playing Nevada, they're playing, I don't even know who's HCU. I don't even know.
That's Houston Christian.
Oh my Lord, HCU.
Yeah, I think that's the Huskies.
Oh, yeah, I'm seeing that now. HCU, Nevada, all of their non-con are right away.
They have one ranked opponent, and that's Florida State, and I think that's in the end of September.
Yeah, and so they're playing all their non-con right away, and I guess I will say BYU and TCU are pretty decent teams to play, so I will grant them that. Those are then Florida State, Louisville. Okay, so that's a pretty tough stretch. BYU, TCU, Florida State, Louisville. But I will say after that, it gets quite easier because they play Stanford. Duke could be game, and I actually did want to talk about that we didn't mention in the season preview. Duke might be an interesting team because of Malik Murphy coming in, and I totally had forgotten that he was coming in to Duke. And then also they got Manny Diaz as the head coach. Not that I love Manny Diaz as a head coach, but I did like him as a defensive coordinator. So maybe he can bring up the defensive level at Duke, and then Malik Murphy being there could really do good things with their offense. But then they play Pitt, Boston College, Virginia, and Cal. So they have a really back half that's really easy. They could end up, I could see them being an 8-4 team easily. And in this game against Nevada, I'm not expecting much against a team like Nevada, but that is an interesting start to the year because they have, for whatever reason, they're on a week 0. They must be playing a team. I don't know. Usually it was you were a week 0 team because you were playing Hawaii, but
Yeah.
I don't see them. They don't have Hawaii on their schedule, so I don't know why they're playing Hawaii. Maybe Nevada is playing Hawaii, and that's why. So, I'm definitely going to watch these games. Like there's nothing else on Saturday, and like it is football. Like we're going to watch these because it's like, we are wanting to watch real games that matter now. And, I think Nevada is not going to be a match at all. I think SMU is going to be able to probably put up 30, 40 points. I'll probably say SMU, and it's on the road in Nevada, but I'll say SMU wins probably like 41 to like 20. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, I'm not. My expectations aren't too high with this one because Nevada won 2 games last year, and I think one of them it was against San Diego State. It was like 6-0. Not, this seems like a layup game for SMU. Their offense is a lot better. I think they'll win this one probably running away. I'm gonna go. Let's go like 38-14.
Yeah, I mean it seems about what it's gonna be because like SMU is clearly a better school. There's way more talent there than Nevada. I mean, Nevada at some points in the last 15 years had some decent teams, but I don't think this is one of them. Okay. Moving on to the game of the day and the game of the week. Florida State going up against Georgia Tech in Dublin, Ireland. It's a sellout. All their fans are clamoring to go after Kirk Herbstreit because game day is there, which, you know what, man, whatever, dude. Like, I don't know why they have such aversion to him. And like, I get it. He was against your school for the playoff last year, but it doesn't matter. Like, it was last year and they weren't going to win it no matter what. Like, I don't understand why Florida State fans feel like they should have gotten in the playoff when they would have gotten smoked by Michigan or Texas or Washington. Any one of those teams, or Alabama, any one of those 4 teams would have just destroyed them.
It's not only that. The thing I said too, and I know Brett Walker on unnecessary reference to the Barstool thing. He said the same thing I said. The moment I lost sympathy for Florida State was when they chose to lay down and die against Georgia. They could have, all the kids could have said, the coaches and all that could have said, we're playing Georgia. We're going to stay. We're going to prove a point. We're going to make this a match. We're going to make Georgia earn it. And if you beat Georgia, you can say even more, hey, we do belong because we beat another team that should have been in the playoff. Instead, they tucked their tails and ran. And instead of actually playing the game, they decided to complain about not being in the playoff. That's where I lost sympathy in that. I know it sucks. You went undefeated. Yes, probably in any other year you would have been in the playoff, but that is no reason to just like lay down and die because you just don't feel like it. You thought you got shafted.
Yeah, I mean, with some of these bowl games, I mean, now that the 12-team playoff is here, a lot of this stuff will probably go away because the major teams are going to play in the playoffs. So like mid-tier teams that don't make it to the playoff will more than likely play their bowl games because those are like not as big as schools that'll get into those other smaller bowl games. So it's like we won't see as much as that because usually the people that don't play the bowl games are the higher end talent that are going to the NFL. And those are the ones that skip out on the bowl game. So like now they're more than likely going to be in the playoffs. So like they're not going to skip out the playoff. They're going to want to win, especially with a champion, a chance to get a championship. So I don't fault them for sitting out, whatever. It does look really bad for 30 plus of them sitting out, which is insane. I don't know, I don't know why that was a thing. I don't know why all of them were just like, yeah, I'm just going to sit out. Like, most of those guys were not going to the NFL, and it's very weird. It's just, the whole thing is really bizarre because it's like, they weren't going to the playoff, so what does it matter? Like, just play the freaking game. And then, but now it's like, we don't have that anymore. Like, it's not going to happen anymore. There's not going to be a close team that doesn't make the playoff, because it's like, at that point, if you're like the 13th, 14th team that's like not good enough to get in, that's really not that big a deal. And most people aren't going to care. I think it was more of like, there was more like anger and like emotion over that because of the fact that it was a 14 playoff and it was very limited who got in. Mm-hmm. So it was very like, and last year was obviously the closest. Like, it was, we did that show on the Sunday of the preview or the selection, and like I was nervous because I didn't know. Like, at that point when it was coming down, they said that Florida State had a 97% chance of getting in. So I, choosing that they weren't going to get in, was nervous I was going to be wrong and I was going to eat crow on social media. I was lucky to be right, and I'm not gloating now. I did gloat that day, but like, I'm not gloating now because it's like, it is what it is, like, it just was remarkable that they didn't get in. It was very close. I think, let's not relitigate that because that could be a whole ball of wax, but just, it's a very interesting story. All of what happened last year, it's raised a lot of alarms. And I know now Florida State is wanting to get out of the ACC, especially after what happened and them not being the biggest fan of ESPN now in that contract. So we'll see what happens in the future. I know there's like some things coming up in the next couple of days and like recently that may determine the future of everything, or we may have to wait till next year to see if they get out of the ACC. But okay, so let's talk about the game. So the Seminoles come in this year with losing a ton of production off the offensive side of the ball. And, Florida State was one of the better offenses in the country last year. And this year coming in, they're only returning 5 starters on offense. So there is a lot to be desire there to see if this offense can click the way it did last year. DJ Ugalele, I think that's how you say his name.
Yeah.
4 years by now, we should be able to know how to say it. But so he comes in from Oregon State after transferring from Clemson as well. So 3-time transfer, maybe 3rd time's a charm. Who knows? I mean, he wasn't atrocious at Oregon State, and they actually
21 touchdowns and all that.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't. It was comparable to Graham Mertz in some way, numbers wise. Not entirely the same because I think he had more interceptions, but like it was very similar in a lot of ways. His completion percentage was obviously way down because Graham was one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the country last year. But he threw for a decent amount, and he had a good squad. Damian Martinez, running back wise for Oregon State, was a stud and put up a ton of yards. And that Oregon State team was pretty solid. I think they were like 8-4 last year. But no, it's definitely him coming in, replacing Jordan Travis, who was there for like 6 years.
Yeah.
And he has a chance to do something here. I don't know if the wide receiver talent is all that great. They lost Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman and some others, and Jaheim Bell. And, they're replacing Trey Benson.
Yep.
So there's a lot of guys no longer there that need to step up. The young guy, Hakeem Williams is someone that was a huge recruit coming out of high school. I think now is the time, if he's ever going to be something, it's going to be this year. Malik Benson comes over from Alabama. This team has some talent. They're definitely not as talented as they were last year. Defensively, they lose a lot of guys last year as well that got drafted. Jared Verse. What was the big guy? The Frisk?
Mm-hmm.
Fisk. Yeah, the big guy that got to. Yeah. So both Verse and Fisk went to the Rams, pretty highly drafted. And then, some of their DBs are gone as well. So I don't know. I mean, I like this Georgia Tech team a lot. Georgia Tech returns a large percentage of their offense, and they were one of the better offenses in the ACC last year. Haynes King put up a ton of numbers. I think he had like 700 yards rushing last year. Yeah, he's definitely a dual threat that, Florida State is, they're going to have to prepare for, because if the defense lost a lot of the production that they had last year, these new guys coming in have to be ready for it, considering their first game of the year. It's, a trip to Dublin, Ireland. There might be some issues there. This could be a game that Georgia Tech sneaks it on them. Conversely, I will say in Florida State's favor is the fact that Georgia Tech is terrible on defense. Yeah, they were 120th last year. They bring quite a few starters back, but it doesn't look good for them defensively. So Florida State might be able to feast on that. But again, like I said, because Florida State is bringing a lot of new guys in, defensively they only have 5 starters coming back. But, Florida State, could end up scoring, I'd say probably anywhere from like 24 to like 31. Now, does Georgia Tech score like 35? I don't know. That would be a tough haul. 35. I think it's possible, but I think I'm going to go with my prediction. I'm going to say Florida State wins like 31 to like 24. It'll be close. I think it'll be like Georgia Tech will have the ball last, and Florida State will make like a last second stand to win the game. What do you got, Ian?
So one thing I do want to say, based on the rankings of offense, we talked about the offense last year. Florida State, now this is potentially handicapped. This was after the Jordan Travis injury, or the injury might have affected the rankings of this. But the overall ranking last year for Florida State's offense, total offense, was 52 in the nation. Teams that were better than that, Florida, Miami, and Georgia Tech. Those teams actually, on offense, played better than Florida State did. And I get you're going to have to put an asterisk because after Jordan Travis went down, that offense definitely was not the same after that. But one thing, another thing to mention, you mentioned they lost a lot of starters. And I think even with that, those guys like Keon Coleman on there, and they still only have like the 52 best offense. I don't think the offense is going to be as explosive as it was. I don't think we're going to see like a repeat of the LSU game this year with Florida State. The defense definitely helped them out a lot last year as well. And they're going to probably have to do that again. One good thing is that most of the offensive line has returned and has a lot of experience, but all of the skill positions and Uiagalelei coming back that's going to be what's tested this year. And their schedule is definitely a lot tougher than it was. Yeah. I think Tech, I'm with you. Tech has got, they were great on offense, but I think they were near last place on defense. And that is going to be what the biggest focus is on this year. But for the game, I think it kind of is a muddy game. I think it's close, but I think Florida State pulls away late. I'm going to go with the 28-14 win for the Seminoles.
Yeah, it just seems like Florida State is probably a better team. I think Georgia Tech scores more than 14, just in my personal opinion, just because I feel like Georgia Tech has the offense to move the ball and a good enough quarterback. And, first game of the year, considering how many players are off or are not returning for Florida State. But let's get into a little bit before we end the show. I'm looking at Florida State's schedule. What is your thoughts on what their record is going to end up being?
I'm not sure if they're going to go undefeated. I just see, they lost so many guys. And even then with that team last year, again, offensively 52, I do think they were like 27th on defense, and that's really going to be the crux. But I know they start off pretty good. It's not that hard of a schedule. I know they play I think after this they play BC and then I think Memphis. They have like 3 straight home games. At SMU is a trap game and a half. Then Clemson comes into town at Tallahassee. Then they got to go to Miami, and then they got to go to South Bend and play Notre Dame. So those are not layups. I think Florida State maybe drops a few based on the team. I think why Florida State did so good last year was that was a lot of guys like 3rd, 4th year together. They had a lot of chemistry together. Not saying they're not going to have that this year, but it takes time to build with this stuff. So I think I'm going to go I'll probably go like 10-2. I think because the games they should win, I think they'll win. I don't see them getting upset, but if there's like a tough game, like against Clemson or depending on how Miami's looking that year, or even how it's going to be at South Bend, because that's near the end of the year. We'll see. I think 10-2, and I mean, will that be one conference loss if they lose to Notre Dame? Probably ACC back in the ACC championship.
Yeah, I think it's around that. Like it's going to be like 10-2, 9-3. I think the Memphis game is interesting. I'm curious to see how Memphis plays them. I know their offense is stout, so Florida State better be ready for that, because that's probably the best offense they'll play all year, outside of probably Miami. But yeah, they play SMU, Clemson, Duke, Miami, North Carolina, Notre Dame, all in a row with a bye week in between. That North Carolina team, I don't know too much about them since they lost Drake May. So, it could be, a still solid team because Mac Brown does recruit well. I don't know how good they are. I haven't really looked into them yet. This is the beginning of the year, so we'll have to do more research into that as we get going. But yeah, Duke should be a solid team. Miami is probably a loss at this point. I think Miami is really good, and we'll talk about them next week with the Florida game. But and then the Florida game should be tough. Clemson, there's like 4 or 5 tough games that I envision them probably going 2-3 in. So if they're 2-3 in those games and winning the rest, they're 9-3. And I think that's what it is. I think they can get 9-3 and still potentially get to the ACC championship game, because one of those losses might be to Notre Dame, which then there would be only 2 losses in the ACC. So that in mind, let's end the show. We'll have the show, like we said, we are every Sunday and Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, on YouTube Live, Facebook, Twitter, X, and I think that's it, just those 3. But you can catch us all 3 of those. The show will be on YouTube after that. Like I said, haterradio.com. All of our socials are hater_radio for X, Instagram, and TikTok. Hater Radio CFB for Facebook. And for YouTube, it is at Hater Radio. Ian, what are your socials one time before we go?
Yeah, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter at GGatorG.
At G_Gator
Yeah,
_ G.
Yes.
Yes, remember
Correct.
that to find Ian. Like, subscribe, comment, follow, all that. Please help us out if you can. That is the show. Enjoy these games. We are glad college football is officially back. And we'll see you Sunday to wrap up these games. And then Wednesday, we get into the big show because the season is officially upon us with week 1. So next Wednesday is like we're full bore from here on out. So that's it. And take care, everybody.